Everybody, it's Phil from Bozos. I'm just doing another session in Phil's fishing school. And what I'm going to do today is show you the difference between a spin rod and a spin reel and a baitcaster. Baitcaster reel, or we also call it an overhead. Now the main difference is pretty obvious to start with. The spin rod, everything is hanging below the rod. The reel looks substantially different, where the baitcaster overhead, everything is above it. The reel's above and the guides are above. Now we'll just come in a bit closer and I'll show you what happens with I'll just put this rod down. What happens with a spin rod is when the line comes off here, it comes off this way by unwinding around, so it's quite wide coming off. It's actually the width of the spool there. So the first guide is a lot wider than on a baitcaster, because what it's trying to do, this line's coming off and it's wobbling like that, it's got to narrow it down and keep narrowing, narrower. So when you get to the end, the guide is small. Both rods have a similar small guide on the end, and that way when you cast, the line's coming off straight by the time it gets to the end of the rod. Obviously, to do that on a spin rod, the rod needs to be longer because it's got to take that distance to come right down there. If I show you the baitcaster, the line on here comes straight off. That's a round spool and it's just unrolling that way. So it's coming off dead straight. So the first guide can be much narrower and the rod can be a lot shorter. Now that's where the difference in the two rods as far as application goes comes into its own. We usually use a baitcaster where we want to cast in a very tight spot, or we've got limited room around us. Now quite often when we're fishing for fish like barramundi, mangrove jack, Murray cod, we're fishing in tight situations, and those fish will live in structure, usually mangroves or trees that have fallen into the water. And so you've got to sometimes get in under branches and whatever. Now if I use a spin rod for that, I'm limited very much in the movement because the rod tip is going to hit the ground or the water. So I've got a very limited range, and same thing coming up. There might be trees, you know, we might be casting from under trees and things. So, you know, you've got to use a lot of different angles when you're fishing in these tight situations. So with the baitcaster, it's really easy to get down low, you can go underhand and the whole lot. The rod is an extension of your arm, and that's why it's very important to learn the correct way to actually hold the rod. Now a baitcaster rod has a little, they nearly always have a little trigger under here. That's just to hold your finger like in a pistol grip, and you're just resting your thumb on there. Now that gives me total control. The natural way I hold my arm straight out, that's how it should be always when using a rod. So I can actually go natural arm movement, every different direction, where if I was using a spin rod, it's just much more awkward because I'm sort of twisting myself upside down and all over the place. So a spin rod, in summing up, is ideal for where you've got a lot of room to move, and most of your fishing, such as flathead fishing, and where there's space and you're not trying to fish in tight situations. So we're going to do a couple of other videos in Phil's fishing school to show you how to cast both of these reels. So we'll come back to you with that, and I hope you get something out of this little lesson. Thank you very much.